tightened. The baby shifted, and the pressure stole her breath for a beat. Malik noticed and stepped closer, shoulder to her hip. His eyes flicked to the tool bag. He understood more than he should. The lead lawyer opened a document and read. Words like unfit, temporary administration, fiduciary duty. Ruth heard them, but her mind caught on smaller details. Grant tapping his ring on the table, click, click. One sister filming with her phone held low, pretending she wasn't. The smell of cinnamon from untouched holiday candles. You can sign now, the lawyer said. Ruth stared at the pen. Her fingers trembled once, then steadied. She signed because refusing did not stop a stamp. It only made it uglier. Malik's hand squeezed hers, and she squeezed back, hard, the silent promise of, I'm still here. The locksmith knelt at the door. Metal turned. A new deadbolt slid into place with a final sound that felt personal. Outside, neighbors gathered under porch lights. It was the kind of street where people acted polite and watched everything. Someone muttered, On Christmas Eve, really? Another voice answered, That family got money and no shame. A teen laughed, sharp and nervous. Like cruelty made him uncomfortable. Grant walked Ruth to the steps, not touching her, keeping distance for witnesses. You'll be fine, he said, like he was offering charity. We're not monsters. Then he dropped a key into her palm. Heavy, cold from the night. That's yours, he said. Willow Lane, the abandoned mansion. Consider it generous. One of the sisters snorted. A haunted dump. Perfect. Ruth looked past them at the dark street, at Malik's small face turned up to her. Waiting. She closed her fist around the key until it hurt. Somewhere behind her, inside the house that was no longer hers, a car alarm chirped once and went quiet. She did not cry on their porch. She only turned, gathered Malik, and walked into the cold, carrying a future they had just tried to erase. The drive to Willow Lane felt longer than it was. Snow dusted the road in thin streaks, not enough to soften anything. Ruth kept both hands on the wheel, knuckles pale, eyes fixed forward. Malik sat quiet in the back, watching houses blur past, their windows glowing with dinners he no longer trusted. The gate to the mansion leaned open like it had given up. Rust screamed when she pushed it wider. The property smelled old. Wet leaves. Iron. Time. The house loomed back from the road, 3 stories of cracked stone and dark windows. Someone behind them slowed their car, headlights lingering. A woman's voice floated out, curious. Is anyone living there now? Another replied, Didn't they say it was condemned? Ruth parked near the entrance and sat still. The baby shifted again, heavier now, reminding her that waiting was not an option. She helped Malik out, zipped his jacket higher, then took the key Grant had laughed about and pushed the door. Cold rushed out first. Then silence. The kind that presses on ears. Their footsteps echoed too loudly as they moved through rooms stripped of furniture, wallpaper peeling like tired skin. Malik whispered, Dad used to come here? Ruth nodded. Her husband had called it a project once, a future thing. She had thought he meant repairs. They reached the back corridor and stopped. A car sat under a tarp. Long. Wide. Familiar in an impossible way. Ruth pulled the cover back with both hands. Dust bloomed into the air. Chrome caught weak light. A 1960 Cadillac. Her husband's voice filled her memory, laughing about land yachts and real engines. She pressed her palm to the hood. It was cold, but cared for. Inside the house again, Malik wandered ahead and stopped. Mom! His voice dropped. He pointed. A steel door sat where a closet should have been. Thick, purposeful, A keypad built into the frame. No label. No instructions. Ruth felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. She tried the code everyone used. Nothing. Her birthday. Nothing. Malik watched, holding his breath. She hesitated, then entered the date she never forgot. Their wedding day. The lock clicked. Soft. Almost polite. The door opened a few inches, releasing warm, controlled air that smelled clean. Not abandoned. Maintained. Ruth closed her eyes for a second, steadying herself. Somewhere outside, a neighbor's voice carried through the trees. "Guess someone finally cracked that place." Ruth stepped forward, unaware she had just crossed the line between loss and something else entirely. The room behind the door did not feel secret. It felt intentional. Soft lights hummed overhead. The temperature stayed even, almost gentle. Shelving lined the walls, sealed cases arranged with care, each labeled in her husband's precise handwriting. Malik stepped in slowly, like he might break something just by breathing. Ruth's first instinct was fear, not excitement. Fear meant rules existed she did not know yet. Paintings rested upright, wrapped in protective frames. Sculptures sat cradled in foam, their shapes ancient and calm. Some pieces looked unfinished at first glance, like sketches, until Ruth leaned closer and felt her stomach tighten. She had seen images like these before. Museums. Books. Places she never thought touched her life. Her husband's voice came back to her in fragments. Long nights reading. Arguments about auctions he never explained. That one strange trip to Europe he brushed off as work. This was the work. Malik whispered, "Is this worth money?" Ruth exhaled. "It's worth history." She made calls carefully. One expert became 3, then 5. They spoke in lowered voices even on the phone. Requests for discretion. Private visits only. No photos. One man arrived and went pale within minutes. He sat down hard, palms on his knees, staring like he'd found a ghost. Valuations followed. Conservative ones. Then revisions. 50 million came up quietly, like no one wanted to be responsible for saying it first. Someone said priceless, and laughed nervously after, as if apologizing. Word leaked anyway. It always did. Neighbors speculated at the grocery store. "Did you hear about Willow Lane? That widow?" "No way." People slowed their cars again, phones out now, pretending to check directions. Ruth listened and said nothing. She learned fast. This was not about selling. Selling ended stories. This collection started one. Late at night, she sat alone in the room, hand on her belly, speaking softly like her husband could hear. She understood now why he stayed quiet, why he left the door closed. Power worked best when unseen. Upstairs, Malik slept for the first time without waking from nightmares. Outside, the mansion stood silent, no longer empty. And somewhere across town, the family that laughed on Christmas Eve had no idea what they had failed to steal. Ruth moved slowly on purpose. That became her rule. No announcements, no press, no victory laps. She hired a lawyer who listened more than he spoke and nodded when she said she wanted protection, not noise. Then she hired another. Then an accountant who asked smart questions and never rushed answers. The mansion changed piece by piece. Not fast enough for gossip, not slow enough to feel stuck. Workers came and went. Roof first, windows next. Climate systems installed quietly. Locals noticed trucks, but could not pin down why. "Probably selling it," someone said. "No," another answered. She wouldn't bother. Ruth registered a foundation under her husband's name. She read every document twice. She learned words she never needed before. Endowment, licensing, cultural trust. Each one felt heavy, but steady. The art never left the house. Institutions came to it instead. Curators walked the halls with careful steps. Scholars argued in whispers. One woman cried openly and wiped her face, embarrassed. Malik listened from doorways. He learned to tell which visitors mattered by how they spoke. The important ones never bragged. They asked permission. They thanked Ruth like she had done them a favor just by surviving. The first exhibition opened without banners. Invitation only. No speeches. People arrived dressed too well for a place they once called ruined. Donations followed, then grants. Universities partnered. Insurance firms competed to cover the collection. Protection stacked on protection. Ruth watched it all from a distance, hands folded, body heavy now, grounded. When contractions started weeks later, she left instructions on the table and went to the hospital without fanfare. By the time she returned with a newborn daughter, the mansion had a waiting list. Across town, things cracked. A business deal collapsed. Then another. Ruth heard about it from a neighbor who leaned in and lowered her voice, hungry for reaction. "Your in-laws," she said. "Trouble." Ruth smiled politely and adjusted the baby's blanket. She did not correct rumors. She did not confirm truths. She only kept building. At night, when the house settled, she walked past the steel door and left it open. Light spilled into the corridor now. The secret no longer hid. It stood protected, anchored, doing exactly what her husband intended. The mansion breathed again, not as a shelter, but as a stronghold. The fall did not announce itself. It never did. It arrived in quiet updates and lowered voices. A lawsuit filed, a lender pulling out, a partnership dissolved overnight. The family that once filled rooms with confidence began avoiding eye contact in public. Ruth heard pieces of it the way most people hear weather reports, in passing, at a cafe, at the pharmacy. Someone always leaned closer. "Did you hear?" Ruth always nodded like she hadn't. Willow Lane changed its reputation without trying. Tour buses stopped at the edge of the property now. Visitors spoke softly inside, as if the walls remembered. Children pointed. Elders lingered. Donations continued, steady as breath. The foundation funded restorations beyond the mansion. Schools. Archives. Quiet scholarships named after a man who never chased credit. One winter evening, almost a year after the eviction, Ruth stood at the front gate with Malik beside her and her daughter asleep against her chest. Snow fell lightly this time, forgiving. A car slowed on the road. Grant sat inside, older somehow, posture bent. He did not wave. He drove on. Ruth felt no surge, no satisfaction, only clarity. She thought of the pen sliding across paper, the deadbolt locking. The laughter meant to shrink her. None of it reached her now. They had taken what was loud and visible. They had left what endured. Inside the mansion, the lights glowed warm against the stone. Visitors moved through history she protected, unaware they were walking through a life rebuilt from rejection. Malik talked about college. The baby stirred and settled again. Safe. Ruth closed the gate with one smooth motion. The sound echoed, final but calm. She did not look back at the road. She had no reason to. The woman pushed into the cold on Christmas Eve had been an underdog. The woman standing here was something else entirely. Not loud, not vengeful, just unmovable. And the legacy that began as a joke now stood untouchable, doing exactly what power does best when no one is watching. If this story hit you, don't scroll past it. Some people lose everything and still build something that lasts, not by fighting loud, but by moving smart and staying patient. Let this be the reminder. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. Subscribe for stories like this. Real struggle, quiet wins, and the kind of endings nobody sees coming until it's too late.